So thanks for having me, and thanks for allowing me to come up and to share something I love and love to talk about, love to think about. And I hope that what I have to say will be equally interesting or exciting or compelling for you as well. When I was asked to sort of talk today and thinking about the theme of what you were doing, it's going to be a little bit inspiring. We're going to be somewhat connecting. But if I've done my job right, I will remind you of some things you may have heard about, but put it in a context to help you move forward. And that's sort of how I think about what I'm going to do for a little while. And I really like this quote, and this is sort of guides our time. But more than our time, it sort of guides my sort of, ruminating. And so you can imagine, as you wake up in the morning, you have a song that goes through your head. For many of us that are spiritual, maybe it's a Bible verse that goes through our head. For me, I often have like quotes or snippets of a song. And for the last little season, it's sort of been this by Einstein. No problem can be solved from the same consciousness that created it. So we know the sort of other famous one, the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. This is sort of very similar. So the idea is that it sounds really funny, but you can't solve your own problems. You can't solve your own problems because you're the person that created your problem. So how do you then solve problems? You have to think differently. You have to become a different you. You have to come at it in a different way. You have to try new ideas. If I try the same thing over and over again, I'll produce the same result. So that's sort of what's going to guide what we're thinking about today. First, of course, I teach at university. We're all in these schools. We start with a test. Here's the test. In addition to being influential leaders, and even for bad, I'm not sure if I would consult with Hitler if Hitler had asked me my opinion. In addition to being good or bad leaders, they all shared a similar experience, and some of them shared two experiences. Who can guess?
Some sort of thing.
Not quite close. They all spent time in prison. And many of them, while in prison, wrote. So, Martin Luther King, Notes from a Birmingham Jail. Nelson Mandela, Long Walk to Freedom. Adolf Hitler, Mein Kampf. The Apostle Paul, he was in prison, waiting his sort of trial with Rome, while he was writing many letters to many of the churches. So in a sense, what I have with you is an opportunity to put you in jail. We have 15 minutes, and in this 15 minutes, we're going to sit and we're going to think and we're going to talk. But we're going to talk a lot about what I think they would have sat and thought about and talked. First question you started thinking, how did I get here? Because chances are the first time they went to prison, that was not on their agenda. Now this is ironic, because if you know some of them, they stayed in prison. We forget the original purpose of Martin Luther King's speech. So his last speech, I've been to the promised land. We know that I've been to the promised land, may not get there with you, blah, 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 blah. And then people go, wow, he was so inspirational. How did that speech start? It started with, hey, guess what? There are some garbage workers in Memphis, Tennessee. They're not getting paid adequate wages. It's going to rain tomorrow. We're going to march to support them. They're going to attack us with the dogs and then throw us in prison. Who's with me? That's how the speech started. Nelson Mandela, he could have gotten out of prison 10 years earlier because he was having just enough of a ripple effect in the world. The apartheid regime said just to renounce violence. He went into prison, why? Blowing up utility towers. His theory was, I blow up utility towers, the world sees the plight of us, will cause destruction. He ended up in prison. Hey, just said to renounce violence. He says, nope, I'm not going to do it. I stay in prison. He goes from prisoner to president. The biggest promotion in the history of promotions. And we could do the same for others in terms of how and what they did. So then the question is, how does that make sense? And I think there are a couple of things to make sense. And if I have more time, admittedly, I do not have more time. But I'm going to squeeze in this story because this is probably the last day we can talk about Christmas since we're getting to February. I would add one more person on this list, and it's Charlie Brown, but it's really Charlie Brown in the Christmas story. Because you got to think about that Christmas story. So how did it start? Charlie Brown was frustrated. He didn't know what the meaning of Christmas was. He was on a personal crusade for something. He goes to Lucy, the consultant, puts a nickel in that jar. Money, 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 money. Lucy says what? You need involvement. You need to get involved in something to help you get the meaning of Christmas. So what did Charlie Brown do? He tries to direct that play. And if you know the TV show, it's about 50 years old now. He says the play, they dance. He says here are the acting parts, they dance. He says here's the script, they dance. And then the consultant that helps him comes back and says what? Where's my part as the Christmas queen? And Charlie says, Christmas queen? I'm pretty sure there's no Christmas queen in the Christmas stories I know in Christmas stories. So in his frustration, what does Charlie Brown do? He goes out and says, I need a tree. And they say, go get a metal tree. Because that's what was the culture of the time. He comes back with that crappy little half-dead tree, the no-limb thing. And they all ridicule him. Charlie Brown, I can't believe this is the worst thing ever. This is the most Charlie Browniest of all the Charlie Browniest things you've done. And here is where he becomes the best leader in the world. Here is where you can become Charlie Brown. So if you can picture the TV show at this moment, he takes the tree, he thinks about what the meaning of Christmas is, he looks down at that tree, he turns, and he walks out. And then what happens? All those kids that were in the gym dancing and singing, they follow him out. Why do they follow him? Don't overthink it. Because they're just curious where he's going. That's leadership. Charlie Brown had two traits I want to talk about today. The first one is passion. He was excited about the thing that he was excited about, putting on a Christmas play. But he also was conscious. He knew it was his struggle to have. He wasn't trying to solve somebody else's problem. Why do you think Christmas is important? He was trying to figure out what he thought Christmas was about. And he was okay being on that quest by himself. He didn't have to have other people behind him. He ended up going somewhere and looked behind, and guess what? People were behind him. So I like to spend less time talking about leadership and more of our time talking about passion and consciousness. Now I know the caveat. Most of us look at this list and they're saying, so are you telling me I can be Nelson Mandela? Are you telling me I can be Mother Teresa? Are you telling me I can be Martin Luther King? Yes. And here's my proof. We find Mother Teresa in 1979 as she wins the Nobel Prize. And then people on that side of the stage go, oh, I could never be Mother Teresa. And then we have this crazy idea. She had to have been born great. So there's no way, I'm not born great, I can't be her. I could have done this slide with all the other people. I just picked this one. She was born in 1910. Wasn't even called Teresa. She was called Agnes. At 18, she has her first epiphany. She thinks she's been called to be a nun. At 18, what epiphany did you guys have? Something about go to university, something about get a job, something about do something with your life. You were goofing around in high school, decided it was time to stretch my wings and go someplace. That sounds very similar. She goes to Ireland. She learns English. She goes to India. And she becomes, guess what? A high school teacher. That's what she was. I live in Edmonton. In my mind, she worked at Holy Trinity. That's sort of what she did. And she was just teaching English to expats. So the Brits that lived in Calcutta, you got to think about the historical legacy of this time. And she was in there teaching English or something she knew as a nun, you can imagine. But she kept looking outside the window. She looked outside the window, what did she see? She saw folks dying. She's inside. She looks outside, they're dying. She's inside. She looks outside, they're dying. And they just bugged her, just like Charlie Brown in the Christmas thing. And eventually she does what? She goes to the headmaster. Hey, we should do something outside. We should do a project. What does headmaster say? That's not what we do here. Your job really is to teach. She goes up to the superintendent. So imagine superintendent of Edmonton Catholic Schools. You know what? We should go outside the walls and do something. What do you think superintendent says? That's not what we do here. Just teach. She eventually writes a letter to the Pope. Dear Mr. Pope. I think God has called me to be outside the walls and to take care of those that are outside there. The Pope eventually writes back. It's not what we do here. He writes a second letter. Just so I'm clear, who's going to tell God that I don't get to do what he wants me to do? Can you write a letter on my behalf? So what does the Pope say? You can go, but you can't take any of your nun stuff with you. So that's why she dressed like this. She didn't go the first day as this sort of nun from the... She went as Teresa. So now we have to catch her in 1945 when she has this second calling to do something. And we come to her and we say, guess what, Teresa, Agnes? In 30 years, you'll win a Nobel Prize. What do you think she would have said at 35 years old? I am no Mother Teresa. You follow? We catch her in 1950. It took 2 years before the Vatican said, this isn't a bad idea, you've been out there. And she writes eloquently about it. The first thing she fundraised for, her own room and board. They didn't give her grant money. They didn't give her a seed and a place, because they didn't think this thing was going to happen, and they didn't want to be connected to this crazy woman with this crazy idea. We catch her in 1950. It's just getting off the ground. She finally has a little bit of stability after 2 years of fundraising. You're going to be one of the most documented photographed women in the history of photographs. In terms of cover of magazines, in terms of Europe, she would have said what? I'm no Mother Teresa. For 19 years, 1950 to 1969, she's just doing what she thinks she's supposed to be doing. And then in 69, the cameras get on her. And then in 69, BBC does a documentary. And then people start talking about the great Mother Teresa. And then the world wanted to fly out to go see her. Chances are, you're somewhere on this timeline. Between 1928, first calling, and 1997, because you're not dead yet. My hope for you is you develop that sense of consciousness and that sense of passion for whatever you're excited about, the same way she did. There's this professor named Harold Kerstad. Harold Kerstad, he did his studies, I think, at MIT, and he taught forever at Virginia Tech. He had a fairly simple research question amongst his many research questions. Where do people in organizations spend their time? Some research that I have done with some colleagues of mine, we've added a letter to this. But it was called the ABC model. We've added the ABCD model. A, your day job. So whatever you're hired to do, administer the business. So if when you go back to work on Monday, think about the stuff you think you're going to do. Reports, meetings, if you have some budget, you'll be approving stuff. You'll be maybe solving some problems, but while it's a crazy problem for someone else, it's a fairly routine thing for you. Right? I think like IT department. So when my computer doesn't work, it's a problem for me, but IT should come in and routinely do what they have to do. A, work. B, work, make those improvements. I'll come back to that in a minute. C, work, crises. So you think you're going to be doing that stuff you talked about, but something happens. Many of us in Alberta right now, we're expecting or we're worried about impending crisis. The budget will happen, and when the budget will happen, we don't know how much less we will get. We anticipate less, whatever that is, in whatever industry, whatever area you're in. There may be a crisis. What do I do about this? How do I deal with this? How do I... Crisis. And then some work we've done, not dumb people, but people that do things that set them back. So in my world, one of the things I like about being a professor, I really do work by myself a lot. Right? I enjoy when I come to do this, I get to engage with people. Most often I go to my office, close my door, it's me and the computer. I hate meetings. The worst meeting of all meetings is when I think this is a decision-making meeting, and as we leave the room, we say, we need another meeting for the decision. Because that would have meant that the meeting I just left was dumb work. I was better off taking a nap for that hour. So people that know me, they often say, they know me, I say this, is this the last meeting? Because this isn't the last meeting, I'll meet you in the last meeting. So why does this matter? This matters because often when we try to make improvement, we don't come at it with an improvement lens. We come at it through our day-to-day task, the A process, or we come at it through crises, the C process, or we come at it and it ends up setting us back doing D work. So I often think about conferences like this. So you get great ideas. The question now is, what do you do with those ideas? So you can do crisis with it. Go back on Monday, have an emergency meeting with everyone. I'm going to change everything you've been doing up until this date. I just learned this 10-minute interest in some crazy idea I just found out about, and now we're going to go full forward. You're thinking you're making an improvement, but you're really making it through crises, energy, anger, upset, frustration. Or, my favorite, you do it the A way. You write out a little briefing note, and then you send it to all your staff. Effective March 1, we're now doing the XYZ system. Okay, that's how we do day-to-day. But that doesn't make sense. D work would be doing nothing with it, unless you went to the mountains and had a great time and relaxed and everything else. But to come here and to sit down and to take copious notes on what you're going to do and never do nothing, you were better off going to the mountains than outside. So how do you do it the B way? How do you do it the same way those great leaders did? Sounds funny. You go to jail. You stop and think about it. And then maybe in the thinking about it, you write a little bit. You talk to people about it. Because you have to get deeper and deeper in what I would call your consciousness to figure it out. How does it work? How does it make sense? And that's what we'll spend some time on. The rest of our time now thinking about that. One other thing about this model. And again, crises is okay, but if you're trying to make improvement, you'll get caught up in the crises. So think about when my house is on fire, I can be crazy. Oh my God, house is on fire, house is on fire. When I call the firefighters, they can't go, oh my God, house is on fire, house is on fire. And so as a leader, there was a sense of, this is an improvement. We're trying to make an improvement. We're calm. What can we do to go forward? How are we moving forward? In the midst of crises, in the midst of your day-to-day job, and in the midst of some of the crazy, silly things you have to do because of the politics or the system, or we didn't know that was going to fail, the D work. So in a sense, what I want to spend the rest of my time on is this B quadrant. How to get deeper and better at B. Absent taking you to jail, giving you paper and pencil, and have you think about it. That's what I just talked about. 3 B's. B work. How do you think about the work in terms of B? How do you think about your leadership in terms of B? And then how do you get with a bunch of other people that want to do similar B, your B team? First, B work. By B work, I mean B work in terms of you. What's the work you want to do? Where you're trying to make happen. 2 quotes. If I could give you one book, and this is probably the academic in me, if I could give you one book that has to deal with business and leadership and improvement, but it's nothing about that. It's Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. Viktor Frankl was a Jew, psychologist, I think also psychiatrist, living in Austria around World War II. As you can imagine, like other Jews living in Austria around World War II, he finds himself in a concentration camp. The book doesn't go into that much detail about how he had his epiphany, but his epiphany was, I'm a psychologist. I study sick minds. I'm in this crappy place. There are lots of sick minds. I'm going to learn something here. And I'll get out and I'll present my findings of what I learned to my psychology peers. So what did he learn? He learned 2 amazing things. First one is, individuals that had a reason to live found a way to get out of the concentration camp. He became the father of logotherapy. So Freud, history, Alder, power, Frankl, meaning. The second thing he learned, it didn't matter what the reason was. So there wasn't a more noble reason than other reasons. Maybe you and your spouse get off the train, ladies go this way, guys go this way, and the whole time you kept thinking, I gotta get back to my wife, I gotta get back to my wife, I gotta get back to my wife. And that's what drove you to survive. Maybe it was anger. I gotta get back at the Nazis, I gotta get back at the Nazis. Maybe what bugged you was you left your light back on in your shop in Austria. That turned the light off, that turned the light off, that turned the... It really didn't matter what the reason was. And in the book, he goes into great lengths to describe what people did that had a reason. Amongst his famous quotes, this is probably the most famous. Ultimately, man should not ask what the meaning of his life is, but rather he must recognize that it is he who is life. Each man is questioned by life, and he can answer to life by answering for his own life. Life he can only respond by being responsible. I think there are 3 parts to this quote. First part, man should not ask what the meaning of his life is, but rather he must recognize that it is he who is asked. I apologize, his language is he, but obviously it's he, she in today's language. Right? So what's he saying there? What he's saying is, we often look up and we go, why am I here? And whether we're looking up to God or Allah or Buddha or the trees or, what he's saying is, they're all answering back. Good question. You go first. I'm getting to the age now where I'm actually knowing people who are, they're aware of their death. They're in their dying moments. And we often hear people say, I wonder what it was all about, or I wonder if I left a difference. I'm thinking, great, we got a couple hours left. Let's go figure that out. So in some sense, that's what he's saying. So why are you here? And if you say you didn't decide to come here, someone else made that choice, I'll be tough with you. Why do you stay here? There are, how many of us? 7 billion? What's your contribution? And we all have a contribution. Again, go back to Mother Teresa. Little Agnes, thinking about her contribution. Nun Teresa, in the school, thinking about her contribution. So we all have a contribution. So what's your contribution? Second question. Each man is questioned by life, and he can answer to life by answering for his own life. I like to think of it this way. It's a full-time job to take care of you. We so badly want to take care of others with so much passion, but we can't take care of others if we have not taken care of ourselves. That's the attraction part. That's what connects people to you, is they see you conscious, alive, and awake. And I can tell you, I struggle with that. I struggle with this one. I have 2 teenage boys. I have an undergrad in engineering. My wife has a master's in engineering. My mom's uncle was the first guy in Alabama to be a math school teacher, a black guy in Alabama teaching math. Erica's mom has a master's in math. Our kid is not good at math. Like you would think if he was bred for anything, if genetics means anything, and at some point I just have to let that go. I can't say, engineering, keep going, why aren't you, let's make this. I can't, what can I do? I can support him on his journey. I can't give him his journey. I can't tell him what to do. Because all that's going to do is create hatred, animosity, and anger. But we so badly want to do that. We so badly want to grab the other person and grab them by the shoulders and say, it's a full-time job to take care of it. Last part. To life, you can only respond by being responsible. Once you figure out that thing you want to go do, good, bad, indifferent, whatever it is, go do that thing. I've been all over the world, and while I firmly believe this all over the world, this is even more true here in Alberta. There is more than enough money for more than enough people that if you get excited about something, and if you work hard at that something, people will throw millions of dollars your way. So you got to think about Bill Gates. When he first started working on computers, let's play back that story, if you know the story. Hey mom, there were wealthy people in Seattle. They sent him to Harvard. He dropped out. So imagine that letter. Your mom and dad, I'm dropping out of Harvard. And guess what? I met this man who's about 31 years old, named Paul Allen. We're going to shack up in his basement in Texas, and we're going to play around with computers. Imagine what that letter sounds like. Right? And then when he did it, why did he do it? He just liked computers. There was no money in computers. We thought we would need 6 or 7 of these big mainframes, defense contract, maybe airlines. He did not think back then that we'd all have something on our desk, something in our hand that can run his operating system. He just loved computers. And he got so good at loving computers, he got so excited about loving computers, what eventually happened? People start learning what it is. My favorite one, you gotta go back a bit. There was a woman that loved Oprah Winfrey. She loved the show. She could think nothing about the show. So what did she start doing? In the early days of blogging, after the Oprah Winfrey show went off, she turned on a computer and she'd write a blog about what the show was about. The advertisement that people started putting on her blog because people started reading what she would write about the show brought her hundreds of thousands of dollars. And she just loved Oprah and had to figure out a way to make that work, and she made that work. So that's the purpose why you're here. That is what I would call fulfilling but never fulfilled. So it's the quest you're on. It's that thing where you say, this is why I think I'm here. I want to help people do. My gift to the world is I'll give you mine. And this took about 20 years to get to this cool statement I'm getting ready to tell you, so don't think, wow, why don't I have this? You know your credit card, when you get a new credit card, and they have that number on there to call, because before you call the number, you can't use it. You activate it. I think my purpose in life is to activate it. You guys, everybody, people I walk with, people I talk to, you got all the power you need. I'm not giving you anything. I'm just helping you turn it on. I'm just helping you to get it going. And as I think about what I do, when I coach basketball, it's funny, it's actually less about basketball. It's more about getting kids excited. Probably the 3 coolest years I've ever was I coached grades 7 and 8 girls basketball. I spent half the time after practice hugging every adult woman I ever met. Thinking junior high is cruel on girls. How did you make it up? And then most of the time, it was me just seeing girls get excited about life. Because I could basketball was just a vehicle. It really wasn't about basketball. It was just, wow, you can do something. And I'll never forget, this is off track, but so again, back to me being a stupid guy. And so if I'm coaching guys, you take 50 guys in a trial, and you go, you're big, you're small, you want the centers over here, the guards over here. I got a bunch of girls in the gym the first day, what do you think I do? Big, big. After the 3rd girl started crying, I realized that was probably the wrong word to use. But I was just, I'm going to help out as best I can. What's my purpose here? How do I see it working here? And eventually we figured it out and everything else. So that's the why part. That's the why are you here. Second part of this then is, where are you going? What is success for you in 3 years? So in a sense, again, I think we sort of remember that when we were younger. You take the grade 1, grade 2 person, ask them what they want to be when they grow up. They have hundreds of answers, and they're not in contradiction. So it's not like I want to be this or maybe this. I want to be this and this and this. Independent of what their background is. I'm from the U.S. The coolest thing about the U.S. is everyone actually believes they can be president. And you will look at them and go, you're in the most poorest, remotest part of the... I can be president. I can be Kanye West. I can be, you fill in the blank. And they think that totally. And then you get to high school. You got a clear picture. You get to college. You get to college. You got a clear picture. Get that job, get that spouse, get that, and then maybe get rid of that spouse, maybe whatever. And then what I find, and it's somewhere, unfortunately, in the 30s, when the A system starts to bog you down. Bills to pay, job demands, kids are off the cute stage of being 2, 3, and 4, now they really work, and you go, I can't wait to retire. And I'm thinking, for real? That's your next vision? 18 years from now? 22 years from now? What is it 3 years from now? I see you in 3 years. You're saying, I am on track. I am awesome because in 3 years, this is what I will see. Not from a contract. It's not to beat you up. So people do New Year's resolutions and then in February they get mad, oh, I can't believe I did that. That's not what I'm saying. But it gives you something to shoot for. It gives you a way to start making choices about the A and C stuff you will do. It minimizes the D work. This is an interesting idea. How does it help me get here? And if it doesn't, then do I need to change here to match this new idea? So that's the vision part. But it isn't just why are you here and where are you going? It's also, what are you looking for? And this big quote, I want to get to this. Mahai Csikszentmihalyi. He wrote the book Flow. And if you think about humans, and again, this is hard to imagine here because this is new for us coming here. But often, you probably had this experience. You drive to work one day, the same way you always go to work, and you're thinking, did I turn off the iron? You have this weird panic about things that you're not sure if you did or not. Why? Because most of us aren't paying attention to all those little details. We don't wake up every morning. Okay, what foot do I get out of the bed with? Okay, I'm gonna this time wash my elbow first. Okay, we just sort of process the day. Why? Because if we didn't, our brains would get tired before we go to work. Because of all the decisions we have to think about. So as a brain, we're trying to take those decisions from conscious to unconscious. Forget about it. Don't think about it. To focus our time on what? The things that may be important. But here's the second trick our brain does. Because it's out of the norm, we often view it as a threat. So think about that one time you drive to work the normal way, and they put just one little simple, detour. Make a right, and then 2 lefts, you're back on the same road. Not even bad. They even got all the signs. You're freaked out. Oh, I'm so stressed. Oh, I couldn't. Because it was out of the norm, I had to think about it. Or, my favorite, like the 5 stressors in life, death, moving, marriage, job. Password changes are moving up the list. We get so stressed when the IT people come to us and tell us you need a new password. Why is that? Because it makes us have to think about something we never have to think about. You've all been in line at the ATM, and you just put in your 4 numbers, and it says denied, or wrong number, or people behind you waiting, you're freaking out, what's the number? Because it's a threat. What Mahai Csikszentmihalyi says is, we can use that to our advantage. Instead of letting something jump in front of us and viewing it as a threat, what if we put something in front of us? What if we said, I'm going to spend all day in this conference looking for these 2 things. I want to find the person that has this one thing that I want. Maybe it's a connection, maybe it's a resource, maybe it's knowledge or experience about something. If you did that, however crazy it is, he says you will find it. Because those things are clearly out there, we're just not conscious enough to ask for it. I'll give you my personal story with this. You may not know this. Black guy moving to Canada, moving to Edmonton, Alberta. I got 2 fundamental things I need to know pretty quickly. Barbershop, church. Churches, good or bad, are fairly segregated, but when you look in the yellow pages, they don't say black church, they just say church. And then barbers. I'm looking at you guys. I don't think I see a black one in here. So now what do? Do I just say, oh man, I'm never gonna find anything to connect with, this is a crappy town? No. Hey, you know any black people? Hey, you know any black people? Hey, you know any black people? Third person I find. My sister is dating a black guy, blah, blah, let me ask. I see another friend of mine, he's been here 5 years, I can't find a barber anymore. Because he's waiting for them to do what? Jump out in front of him. That's the consciousness part. A friend of mine had the same story. Him and his wife were getting close to retirement. As they're getting close to retirement, they wanted to retire in a cabin. And they thought about this, and they just chatted forever about it. And then one day, in a fit of panic or frustration, the wife says, look, either we're going to get this cabin at the end of the year, or we're going to stop talking about this cabin. Because we talk about it every year, we got money in the bank, it just never happens. What do you think happened? All they heard for like the next 2 months were cabins. They'd be at a restaurant over here, they'd over here. What do we do with Aunt Sadie's cabin now that she died? They'd be sitting on the bus, get a paper, open up to a random page, cabins for sale. Because once you put it in front of you, your brain starts looking for cabins. Because your brain wants to be consistent with your thoughts. It's called cognitive dissonance. As I start pronouncing something, if I say it out loud, my brain would experience stress until it connects up. That's why most things are positive talk. So no matter what self-help thing you want, it's positive talk. Because we're good at negative talk. Oh, I'm a loser, I'm this, I'm that. But instead, say positive talk. It sounds really funny. But if I said every day, I'm a short white woman, I'm a short white woman, He would say, and research would say, I would start exhibiting traits of a short boy. Because my mind would have to put that connection. And so for you, what's your habit? What's the thing in front of you that you want to make happen? Along with having a purpose, why are you here? Having a vision, where are you going? Having those concrete things you're looking to make happen, this is the hardest part of this. It takes work. I love the quote. It's important to pursue a dream that heals you. With dreams come desire. With desire comes self-motivation. With self-motivation comes work. With work comes success. So we like that part about dreams and desire. That's a cool part. That's soar with the eagles, give 110%. If you reach for the stars, you'll get the moon. We put that on most of our wall pictures. But what's between dreams and success? Work. Work. And this is, I've already said one tough thing to you. This is the second tough thing. Think about how you got the job you have now. Right? Did someone come and find you on the street, hijack you, and then handcuff you to your computer terminal and force you to do your job? No. You applied for the job. You interviewed for the job. And in the interview, you said what? I'm the best person for this job. Stop looking for anybody else. Now, why do you think they had an opening? Things were not smooth sailing. Things were not going great. If all the kids in Alberta were already healthy and active, how many of us would they need? But this is why I find it funny. We then take the job, and what do? We start complaining about the challenges. Man, this is a hard job. Did they know? Who knew? I can't believe that this problem is, and they did. I'll just sit here and wait until somebody fixes it. And guess what you think they're saying? That's why we hired you. Take it off of you for a minute. The Edmonton to Calgary flight. That flight lasts, 27 minutes up in the air? Where are the two pilots? The second pilot is there just in case. Just in case something goes wrong, that's why there's a second pilot. Where are their flight attendants? We can get our own coffee and nuts and everything else. It's a short flight. They're there just in case. But what do you think they complain about? I can't, man, these passengers drive me crazy. And you're not the only one. Professors do the same thing, right? Because we work year-round. I'm on campus year-round. I love June, July, August. No students are around. Then comes September. All the students start bugging me. And if they don't know you're behind them, man, this would be a great job without the students. Follow? But in a sense, that's what you raised your hand for. You raised your hand to tackle those hard problems. And so instead of bemoaning the problem, I would say something else. Here's my chance. Here's my chance to do that thing I raised my hand to go do. I raised my hand to make a difference with this situation. I raised my hand to conquer this thing. Thank God there are lots of these things in front of me, because then I get to show, I get to do that purpose I'm here to do. That make sense? Yeah. This is my youngest son, Miles. Right? And I'll take 1 minute to describe Miles' situation. And the lesson on this really came from my learning from my son, Miles. Miles has been short all his life. So most kids that play basketball, a fair amount of them, they may start tall, but then whatever their genetics or puberty take over, but they stay like they were tall and they become short. Miles has always been short. He was born short, he's gonna be short. You look at all the height growth charts, he's not getting to even 50 percentile as a human, let alone as a basketball player. So, my nephew Casey's coming to stay with us, and Casey's always been tall. Casey's mom is taller than me, Casey's dad is taller than her. Casey's about 6'8" now. Casey, when he was 14, my son Miles was 5. My son Miles saw Casey maybe dunk a basketball, saw him play on the court, thought, Dad, I want to do that. So I already knew at 5 he was a short kid. So as a good dad, I'm trying to talk to him about, that may not be the sport for you, blah, blah, blah. No. So what do I got to do then? Well, if you're going to be short, you got to dribble and shoot really well. At 5 years old, when he heard that lesson, we're living in Lubbock, Texas. We had a little hoop outside. He spent the entire summer outside trying to make a basket. Truly, 105-degree heat. Miles, come inside. At 5, I can't come inside. I got to make this basket. Dad, I'll make 5 more. So for the most part, Miles is that short kid that the first half is just torching kids. Because most teams put their short kid on his short kid, and he's like 30 points at halftime. And then they switch, they put the better kid on Miles. Miles made Team Alberta U15 team. After he made the team, they asked me to coach the team. And as Miles was saying, because they think that if they asked me to coach first, I probably would have cut him. Right? So that's how it worked out. Miles finds out he's the shortest kid on Team Alberta. He's short by a lot. He's the shortest kid of any boy on any team. Team BC, Team Ontario. The U15 girls were there. He's the shortest player there. 5'5". Nobody else in the booklet was shorter than 5'5". Now there could be a moment for Miles to feel what? Sad and depressed. Man, I'm short. But I told you this story already. He's been short all his life. So what does Miles do instead? I'm the best 5'5" player in the country. I didn't know that. There's nobody else 5 foot. There are obviously other kids 5'5" in the country. None of them are on any team. The happiest day in Miles' life was when he got taller than 5'3". Because there were one player in the NBA 5'3". And I truly have learned to get out of his way. Is he going to the NBA? I got no idea. But he's like Charlie Brown. He's moving that way, I'm a step behind. Because he's seeing it just takes work. That's all it is, it just takes work. How do I know that? Why are there so many great Albertan hockey players? There's nothing magical in the water. But you can convince a 7-year-old girl to get up at 6 in the morning to drive 1 hour to pay to skate in an ice rink. If you can convince that girl to do that, you'll get some guys to go to the NHL. It's just how much work you want to do. And passion. So you can't just think of it as work, drudgery, oh my God. And if you've ever coached, you see some kids that want to be there, and then the kids that you're making be there. The kids you're making be there, at some point you go, you gotta want to be there. But I think that's no different than us as humans. We gotta want to be there. That's Charlie Brown. He wanted to figure out what the meaning of Christmas is. That's my son. He wants to be in the NBA. It's not me wanting to be in the NBA. What about passion? Think about these people and the passion they have. What if you acted as if you were a rock star every day? What if you acted as if you were an athlete every day? So think about it. You come to work every day? I'm in the house. Before you leave, drop the mic. I'm out. How would that make your world different? I really got this, and this shows how my mind thinks. I was listening to this comedian, Greg Bernhardt. He's just not into you book. And his point about the book is the guy doesn't like you, why are you trying to chase the guy? But his bigger point is you're worth better than that. Why would you play small? You can play big. And I think often at work, we play small. We could be rock stars, we don't play like we are rock stars. So think about successful athletes for a minute. Sounds like us. Work years at your craft. You've worked years at your craft. They find a great group to be with. You find a great team to be with. But here's then where it may fall apart. They realize it can be taken away at any moment. So Super Bowl, win or lose, they'll shake hands with each other. Why? Because somebody got hurt. Because I'm 1 knee injury away from losing this thing. You didn't get hurt. You've been tackling me all day. That was a good game. Nobody got hurt. The triad. How do you become a rock star? Celebrate everything. Every good thing that happened today was a great day. Think about athletes. Every play, they celebrate. Think about rock stars. At the end of every song, thank you, thank you. They celebrate everything. Own up to your mistakes. My bad. I throw the ball to you. You drop it. We all know it's your fault. Why do you say your fault? Because you own up to it's your fault. Why? To get to the next play. Move on. Think about the world of work. We rarely celebrate anything. People rarely own up to their mistakes. And we're still complaining about something that happened 5 years ago. There's no surprise we play small at work. Total commitment. They practice when they're not in the game. Total ownership. They look like a rock star. So my offer to you is back to conscience and passion, where you look like a rock star. In the time I have left, I'm going to fast forward to the point. I was in Botswana, and in Botswana, we were trying to explain these thoughts. I worked with the government there. We worked there for 15 years or so. And we were struggling with leadership concepts. Why? Because often the concepts are cultural determined. think about the analogies we use. Storm the hill, pass the puck, move the chains. That only makes sense if you understand hockey or military or football. They didn't. So we got lucky. And we were thinking about performance, how to achieve results. And they thought the best sort of analogy for that would be a lion leader. Big, proud, great mane of a lion. But a couple of things about lions we don't know. First one is, they go on a hunt 10 times, come back with a kill 4 times. Not that successful. Secondly, and I love this word, lion's share. The lion's share doesn't mean a big piece. It doesn't mean the first piece. It means the biggest person gets all they want. So if I'm the head of the pack, I eat until I throw up. Second head of the pack eats until they throw up. That's not a good way to lead an organization with a lion at the top. We would argue it's a pack of wild dogs. First, the result. They go on a hunt 10 times, they come back with a kill 8 times. They're the most successful hunting group ever. Secondly, here's what's really cool. There's the same alpha male and alpha female like lions, but sometimes even they hunt. Think about lions, only the females hunt, because the big guy stays at home, gets all the credit. Wild dogs, we all go hunt. And now here's where it's really cool. They hunt, make the kill. It looks like they're eating, which may be a bit selfish, but then they come back to the pack and they regurgitate for the babies. And what's even cooler, then the babysitters get to eat second. Then to those that hunt, they eat last. Who's ready to hunt the next day? The babysitters become the hunters. The hunters become the babysitters. When the babies get old, they're healthy and ready to hunt. So in a sense, think about your world. You're busting your butt working hard. If you had to take half a second off, who could lead the charge for the next little while? Is that person around you? Have you built a team that way? Where we all celebrating success? Even those that aren't working hard together, we're celebrating success. So for you to be here, who's back in the office? Maybe next time, I'm back in the office and that person's here. We're on this same team together, trying to move forward. Not lying, it's about me cutting the ribbon, it's about me being in the front, about my name being attached. It really isn't. It really is about the thing being executed, the thing that's getting done. Some traits about them. Pack vision. Do we all want the same thing and say the same thing? Pack leadership. Is there a seamless transition between me and you? Individual skill. If I needed to work by myself, I can work by myself. And then perseverance and tenacity. Probably the best example of this, and this is my last board example, San Antonio Spurs. On any given day, any guy can score the most points. As contrasted with other teams, which says on any given day, I score the most points. So I'll leave you with 2 slides. ABCD model. We spend a lot of time on B. What's the result of that? The result of that is C should go down. You're running from crisis to crises. You now have a plan on which crises are crises and which crises are just noise. You get really smart in terms of dumb stuff. You still do some stuff like that because there are experiments. You thought it would work, it didn't work, but you get smarter on it. And eventually, you get smart enough to think about improvement and your data to work at the same time. So I really built this. If we went on the website for Alberta Education, either to Edmonton or Cal, they probably have a mission statement. We're the board of blah, 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 I think we should do this. Have a vision statement, what's our goal? They have some kind of strategic plan on what they do. We have to find a set of values. If I went to the local school, a lot of local schools, Harry Ainley High School, our mission is this, our vision is this, here are the things we value. What about you? Where's your mission statement? Where's your vision statement? If I asked you, what are your values? Those have to be not necessarily consistent, but conscious to have a conversation. A group of giraffes are both singular and herd-like. So how it works is, I'm a giraffe, you're a giraffe. We're doing our own things. For some reason, we find ourselves at the same watering hole. Since we're at the same watering hole, if we move in the same direction, guess what? We form a bond. We socialize together. We defend each other from the prey together until what? The next watering hole. And when we get to the next watering hole, if you raise your head and go right, and I go left, no tears, no sad goodbyes, we just go on different journeys. I think a lot of what we are doing today is we happen to find ourselves on the same journey. As the organizations you are embracing are getting clear on their journey, school vision, organization vision, hopefully I've helped you get clear on your personal journey. What's your vision? What's your cabin? And then once you do that, now we can see there's a match between your vision and where you work at vision, and the people you're trying to influence vision. That's all the time I have for today. Thanks a lot.